It's a Monday, and it's another edition of WRAL Triangle at 2. I'm Mark Bergen, joined as always by Luis Fernandez with the coffee and all. The college football season is done and over with for all three Triangle teams in NC State, UNC, and Duke. All lost their bowl games, Luis Fernandez. Today is just kind of a recap of the season and what's ahead in 2025. And I'm going to open it up like, where do you want to start with this? Because we can go in a lot of different directions.
Just kind of a sad ending in general. And all three lost their games and lost them in the way that they did. UNC really, I was going to say once, Jacolby Criswell went down with his injury, didn't have a chance against UConn. But, it was so early, we didn't even know what they were going to look like. NC State losing in the way that they did against ECU, really tight at the end, and then the fight that happens as well. And then Duke just kind of, I know that there were a lot of backups in the Duke Ole Miss game, but they just got beat bad. How about we start with NC State, since minus the Bill Belichick situation, I feel like they've had the most change so far in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, let's jump in. They'll have a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator for the 2025 season. Tony Gibson's taken the Marshall head coaching job, who's been your longtime DC, running that 3-3-5 defense. This Wolfpack defense wasn't quite the same as it was a year ago when you had the services of Peyton Wilson.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of changeover. And I look at the coaching staff changes, but Lewis, opening next season against ECU, after the loss in the bowl game, I don't think Dave Doeren and this staff can afford a loss in the opener, because he's been there since 2013. He's been the Wolfpack's most successful head coach historically. But I think that seat gets a little bit warmer if you don't take care of business opening week of the season against your in-state foe. I don't even know if I want to call it a rival, because it seems like in this state, everyone considers another team their little brother. But that's kind of how I see this, of the changes you're going to have the coaching staff, but then 2 losses to ECU, potentially. It's like that's the stage for the start of the 2025 season for the NC State Wolfpack.
Yeah, I don't know how many kind of situations you have where you go bowl game, start of the next season against the same opponent. It's one of those things where it feels like you couldn't write the script. Like the script wouldn't be that believable to go bowl game and then to face them again, especially with the fight and everything like that at the end of the game. I don't think one game will make or break, but I do think that, NC State needs some positive results, some positive momentum. The way they ended 2 seasons ago, obviously that's a really big, I think, shout out to the coaching staff for that one. But this season, a lot of underperforming. You could not project the Grayson McCall injury, but you did find a really good quarterback in CJ Bailey. I think making the changes at offensive coordinator was needed. It was needed. You have plenty of talent. It was just about executing. There was too often that the offense just did not do what it needed to do. So I think change from Auburn, that was important.
Let's talk about the OC. So Kurt Roper will take over for Robert and I thought it was really interesting when this news broke after the Military Bowl, the way that NC State released it of, okay, Robert and I, the last 2 seasons, the offense hasn't been what it's needed to be. But then they really focused on Roper's role in developing CJ Bailey and the production that Bailey had. And Roper will retain his position as the team's quarterbacks coach. But I thought the messaging was interesting because Roper, as the team's quarterback coach, is somewhat responsible for the offensive production. Now, the play calling, the scheme, ultimately it falls on your OC. And so we'll see what Roper can do with his opportunity.
Yeah, it's I feel like the college football is continuing to turn into the NFL in a lot of different ways. And some of that revolves around having a guy at quarterback. And when you're just reading through the press release, reading through, the way NC State kind of phrases Roper's accomplishments, it revolves around quarterbacking. He started off as a grad assistant at Tennessee, spent time at Ole Miss with David Cutcliffe Also went with David Cutcliffe to Duke. Played a big role in helping to get Eli Manning to do his thing, which is something I think that's one of those, just kind of, alarm bell type ringing things. And then was at Duke when Duke had so much success in the early part of David Cutcliffe's tenure. Dad Lewis, for those that pay attention to Triangle Sports, I mean, Dad Lewis was a quarterback that, was just so well known for his kind of offensive success and what he was able to accomplish with the Blue Devils. So, it's a lot of it is going to revolve around CJ Bailey. That's just kind of the modern state of football where you have to have a quarterback who can be the guy. And so make CJ Bailey as good as you possibly can. And the hope is, I would guess, the offense would fall into place. They definitely have a lot of talent. There's a lot of young playmakers, whether it be everyone essentially returning except for Casey Concepcion, who's now at Texas A&M. The pieces are there. Now it's, what does that recipe look like when you make it all come together? So that offense is going to be very important for NC State's just success next season.
Two stats I want to give to you about the past 2 years under Robert Anae, and let's focus on this past season specifically. At 366 yards of offense per game, that's 83rd among 134 FBS teams, so you're on the bottom half there. 27.8 points per game, that's 57th among the 134 FBS teams. So can you improve those numbers this coming season with the new OC, a new play caller? Now, having said that too with Robert Anae, and let's take the sample of the bowl game in the Military Bowl. Hollywood Smothers he was their best player. And if you look at the box score of the game, it's like, wow, he really dominated for the Wolfpack. How you don't get him the football in like the entire third quarter is crazy to me. So the writing was on the wall given the lack of production offensively, even after the game.
Yeah.
Some of Dave Doeren's comments. So when the news broke that Robert Anae was fired, it was not all that surprising to me. But again, if you just look at the box score and don't look at the game at all, it's like Smothers is clearly their best offensive player in a post-Casey Concepcion world. Get the ball to your playmakers. I mean, it sounds as simple as that, and they didn't do that.
I'd throw Justin Jolie's hat into that mix as well, but it's Hollywood Smothers, his growth in the latter half of the season, the way he took over that backfield, the way he was able to not just have explosive runs, but also do well at the goal line. I mean, there were so many games where he just was finishing from 1-2 yards out. I think there should be a lot of excitement around his potential for next season. It's kind of, this brings you an all-around running back for sure to complement, CJ Bailey in that passing game. So there's, like I said, the pieces are there, but the offense has to execute. It's the talent. I think the production has to equal the talent. And I think there's a lot of talent with NC State's offense.
Now, DJ Eliot will take over for the defense as well. I just want to make sure we make mention of that because the defensive side of the ball has really been this team's calling card of keeping it close, playing gritty defense, winning the turnover battle. And it's not a flashy style of football, but it's how this program has been successful in Dave Doeren's tenure, which dates back to 2013.
Yeah, and you mentioned, losing Peyton Wilson last year for NC State. Davin Van's going to be gone as well. So there's a lot of leadership and production that has left this NC State defense over the past couple of years, even before you even think about Tony Gibson and him leaving. I know there was a rush of players who left in the transfer portal for NC State, after the bowl game from the defensive side, especially the secondary, the Tamarcus Cooley's, Bishop Fitzgerald's of the world. To me, that just kind of feels like a change in scheme. So enter the portal because you don't necessarily fit in the new scheme. That's kind of the way I interpret that. But whenever you enter an offseason and you change both coordinator spots, to me, there's a lot of volatility for what comes next because you don't know what it's going to look like. Kurt Roper has that experience with NC State. Sure, DJ Eliot has experience in the NFL as well as in college football, so that's going to be interesting. But you just don't know what these products are going to look like next season. So NC State, I think, is going to be in a very interesting spot come 2025.
Can't wait for the opener against ECU because that's going to be a good measuring stick game a good litmus test game. Let's keep this rolling, though. You want to go to UNC or Duke next, Lewis?
Let's stick with the changes. Let's stay with UNC. I think it's obvious to look at Bill Belichick and say, "Whoa, everything's changed." But there's still a lot to look at and figure out what's happening with this UNC team.
All right. The question I have is who's the quarterback going to be? And we're trying to figure this out before the pod, and we're supposed to be the experts, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, really, when you look at it, you've got Bryce Baker coming in as a true freshman. I think
recruit.
I mean, he's got a lot of talent. Bill Belichick, brings him out there with him when he makes his appearance in the Dean Dome for the first time. So I think that there's a lot of expectation and hype surrounding Bryce Baker. He is a true freshman. So, it's kind of one of those things where you want to take a deep breath. Don't adjust your kind of expectations. We'll see how he looks in the spring. We'll see how he looks in the fall. Ryan Browne, the Purdue quarterback transfer, is who else has come over through the transfer portal. He was a true freshman last year, so he's another young guy. It's you need to see what it looks like. He didn't play all that much with Purdue, but Purdue is also a very bad football team last year. So it kind of makes you a little hesitant. He was a 3-star guy coming out of high school. So, is it going to be one of those two? Jacolby Criswell, possibility. Max Johnson, what's he going to do? You've got, once again, a lot of change. But I can tell you one thing from watching the Fenway Bowl and just looking at UNC in general this season. If you don't have that guy calling plays, kind of going back to what we were talking about with NC State, if you don't have that signal caller, you're going to be, the bar is going to be low. There's only so much you can do.
I still think there's a lot of questions between now and the start of the fall at UNC. And I'll be honest with you, with the bowl game, the Fenway Bowl, I don't know if I can take anything away from that then applies to the coming season in 2025, just given all the changes that come with the Bill Belichick era. So it's other than the fact that Freddie Kitchens will have some sort of role on the staff.
So the reports currently are that Freddie Kitchens will be the offensive coordinator. These are reports, nothing's been confirmed yet. And that Steve Belichick, Bill's son, will be the defensive coordinator. But that's about all we, even just from reports, know about this coaching staff at the moment. So
can I point out, I know I've said this before and I'm a broken record, but I just want to make sure that people know this. When he was the head coach of the Browns in 2019, and this matters, Lewis.
Yeah.
This matters because Freddie Kitchens he received some consideration to be the head coach. And I want to make sure that I have this right about 2 in-game decisions that he made in Cleveland that were just head-scratching. He ran the football on a 4th and 9 play as the head coach of the Browns in 2019.
Yeah.
He also had a game where it's 4th and 11, punt team goes out there. He has a timeout. He then decides, I'm going to take a false start penalty, move the ball back to 4th and 16, and put my offense back on the field to try to convert instead of to try to call a timeout and draw up a play and put your offense out there. Lewis, I don't care what level of football it is. I don't care if that's high school level. If that was high school level, there needs to be accountability for that. So Freddie Kitchens seems to be very well liked at UNC, and I understand it. But some guys are not cut out to be head coaches. If he could do that as an OC at the college level, we'll see. But those are decisions he made when he was in charge in Cleveland in 2019. It's on the record. You can look at it and you're saying, well, what does that have to do with this right now at this moment in time? That dude's going to be your OC. I'm just pointing out facts, Lewis. Those things happened.
Well, he won't be the head coach. So you got that going on. No, I mean what I'm kind of getting at though with this is that it's as recording this, it's January 6th. And there's still a lot of questions about this UNC staff, just in general. Now maybe I know Belichick has spoken at length about, having that kind of NFL infusion of coaching staff and thoughts and things like that. So now that we're at a point where the NFL season, the regular season is over, maybe some more guys start kind of coming in and doing their thing. But it's, I think the way I'm kind of looking at this is, there's still a lot of time, obviously, in the off season, but Got to start making moves. You got to start doing stuff. There's the portal situation is not like people are not lining up to come to Chapel Hill just in general, right? So I don't know. I adjust expectations for what I don't think if you're going into next season for UNC thinking, okay, they're going to make the college football playoff, I think you got to take a big old step back. So I don't know. There are still a lot of questions that have to be answered for UNC football. It's not everything is not lining up perfectly, dominoes, falling into place. And that's as I think is going to be a lot of what we're dealing with UNC football, where it's just you just don't know. You just don't know because you don't know how Bill Belichick will translate to the college football world.
If it is Steven Belichick, he's been the defensive coordinator over at Washington.
Yeah, he's good.
A group that allowed fewer than 325 yards per game. That's 27th in the country. Year before Belichick, Steven Belichick got there, it was 406 yards per game. So you talk about that NFL experience transferring over to college. Some people want to claim nepotism with Steven Belichick, but he did some things that helped improve that Washington Huskies defense this past season, and the statistics reflect that.
Yeah, no, I like what he's going to bring from a defensive perspective. But you got to have the players, and if that's one thing we can take away from the Fenway Bowl, you have to have the roster. And I mean, Travis Shaw just reportedly left to go to Texas. So they just need like players at this point. That's where UNC is at. They need bodies. So I'm curious, what the next steps are. I feel like a broken record talking about UNC and NC State in this way, but like there's so many question marks about what they're going to look like with all of the changes.
If we don't even know who the quarterback is, it's like if we don't know definitively of like, okay, that's the guy, it's kind of hard to project of, hey, what even are the expectations for the 2025 season?
Let's move on to a team that we know a lot more about, the Duke Blue Devils.
Yes. I think Jackson Dart just threw for another touchdown pass, Lewis.
Okay. So I'm glad Lane Kiffin said something after the game about Jackson Dart or he's learned how to have class or whatever. I was like, come on, dude, you're already throwing against the backups and the third strings and all that stuff. Him throwing a 70-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter of the minute. I was like, what are we doing here?
Someone let Lane know that if you put up 60 points, they're not gonna retrospectively invite Ole Miss into this year's CFP. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was I had a feeling going into that game that Ole Miss was gonna open up a can just because they felt upset that they didn't get involved. Hey, once again, if you want to make the college football playoff, don't lose to Kentucky. Do not get me started on the college football playoff conversations because I've had enough. I've had enough, Mark. But kind of turning this back to Duke, right? I think you saw
you're channeling it, Lewis.
Channeling it. What Manny Diaz with the different players talked about leading up to this game was the Blue Devils wanted to prove that they, belong in that college football playoff conversation. They were 9-3, going into the Ole Miss game. Almost 10 wins. We would just been the second time in program history they got 10 wins. But I think that they still have steps that they have to take before they are considered, a team that is in that conversation. They lost, obviously they lost their number 1 and number 2 quarterback, so that definitely impacted things, but it was still the defense. Ole Miss was a tough matchup, but there's still a lot of steps I think that Duke has to take. Positive momentum for sure, but I still think they're on they still have some work to do.
Yeah, Henry Beelan was 25 of 44, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns, interception. I liked that they got Jordan Moore a touchdown late in the game.
Yeah, that was nice.
So he'll be back, but it's going to be Darian Mensah because I see these reports where for the next 2 years, Duke's going to pay him something like $8 million is what the reports are showing. So it's you're going to pay, $8 million over the next 2 years to have him sit on the bench. I don't think so for the 2025 season.
Well, and he played really well at Tulane. He's a redshirt freshman. Like he played really well, and I think it's super exciting for the Blue Devils to have someone be able to come in and has that talent and it has that production, and the offense, like the offense looked solid for Duke this year, but I feel like they left a lot of yards and they left a lot of points on the table. So having Darian Mensah at quarterback, I think is going to be really exciting for the Blue Devils. There are pieces that still like wide receiver wise, they still have to figure things out, right? Because you're losing Eli Pankel and you're losing Jordan Moore, who had so much production this year, were such a key piece to what Duke wanted and what Duke did. But the thing is, you still are retaining so much, right?
Jonathan, and the best recruiting class that the school's ever had. So it's like you would like to think that year 2 of Manny Diaz, that he's able to build on kind of what Mike Elko built, but it's now going to be more of his guys that become part of this team. And it's not just, you're able to coach up and to have success based on the past 2 years under Mike Elko. So that's, I just can't believe that Duke of the 3 triangle schools was the best of the bunch this year. Like, that's still crazy to me.
You have to give so much credit to Manny Diaz and that coaching staff, because I said this many times, reading so many previews that people nationally were talking about Duke. It was like, hey, if they can get bowl eligible, that's a huge win for Manny Diaz. And here they are, not only being bowl eligible, but being the best team in North Carolina at FBS level, and then having the opportunity to win 10 games. They came that close to having one of those historic seasons for their program. You have to give so much credit to what they have to do or what they did. And on top of all of that, I think there is a lot of positive momentum for Duke football. I was looking at their schedule next year. It's going to be more challenging. You play against Illinois, who was one of the top 25 teams for a good chunk of the year, at Tulane. So there was a lot of departure from Tulane, but all of a sudden you got Darian Mensah coming from Tulane. That's going to be interesting. At UConn, and then even within the ACC, you're playing at Clemson this year, and then you're also playing at Syracuse. So I think that there are it's kind of similar to year 1 to year 2 under Elko, where the expectations are now going to rise. The difficulty of the schedule is going to rise. And so now can Duke rise to that occasion? And nothing under this coaching staff makes me think that they wouldn't be able to.
Of the 3 triangle teams, Lewis, which do you think will be best next season?
Duke.
Wow.
I mean, right?
Wow, no hesitation, too. You didn't even have to think about that.
Well, I mean, because I think UNC and NC State, there's so many changes. And there's volatility there. Like I said earlier, you just don't know what it's going to look like. Will Bill Belichick and this staff translate immediately at the college football level in year 1 for UNC? I don't know. Because like I said, it doesn't matter how good this coaching staff is. They have to get the players. They have to get a roster together. And then for NC State, they have so many young players, but how do those players develop? Is their defense going to be, Dave Doeren's always hung his hat on defense, so I'm sure their defense is going to be solid even with changes. But, is it going to be more like last year, or is their defense going to be more like the last couple of years, under Tony Gibson when you had Peyton Wilson and, folks like that involved? But I just think that Duke has the most consistency. And I just, I lean towards them. I think the Blue Devils are in a really good position.
Incredible. He's Luis Fernandez. I'm Mark Bergen. This has been another edition of WRAL Triangle and 2. We're officially into hoop season here in the Triangle, too. So
yes,
we're going to have plenty of more podcast episodes this coming season as we transition into hoops. And it's just, I can't believe we're already past the holiday season as well. So we'll keep it rolling here. And I know you have a lot of good things coming over on WRALSportsFan.com as well, Lewis.
Same for you, Mark Bergen. You're always cooking up good stuff. Happy New Year, everybody. We are, 3 months away from March Madness? Let's get it.
He's Luis Fernandez. I'm Mark Bergen. Thank you for listening and watching another edition of WRAL Triangle 2. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and so long, everybody.